everyone, and welcome to WGBS TV Live, brought to you by SupermanHomepage.com, the #1 Superman fan site in the world. My name is Steve Eunice. In this, our July 14th, 2020 show, we're going to be covering a range of topics, including some recording dates or filming dates for Superman and Lois. We're going to be talking comic books and so much more. We're also going to turn to you to see what your questions and comments on any particular Superman topic might be, and to let you know how all that works and how you can get involved in tonight's show. Let me introduce you to my co-host, Mr. Michael Bailey. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Steve, how's it going tonight?
Going well, mate. Yourself?
Oh, man, if I was any better, they'd have to put me down.
Haven't heard that one before.
It's something that I say to people at work because it's the slightly funnier version than, like being like a gloomy Gus all the time, like, oh, everything's terrible. So I say the opposite, and it goes through. But anyways, you're not here to hear about my bizarre work habits. Or maybe you are, in which case you're going to be really disappointed because WGBS Live is all about Superman. Because of that, we want to hear from the Superman fans that are watching us live on YouTube right now. So about halfway through the show, and if we don't have a whole lot going on, which is debatable this week, we will start taking your calls. Now, how do you do that? Well, it's really simple. First, you're going to need Skype. Get on Skype, find Superman homepage, and message us that you'd like to be on the show. Now, a couple of things. One, message us, and two, that bug better get off me. One, message us. Don't just call, because things can get screwy, like that bug that just jumped on my hand for some reason. And two, if you are using an external speaker to watch Radio KL, see, it's been like 3 years and I'm still saying it. WGBS, I was doing really good too. WGBS, even with the bug. WGBS Live, if you're using an external speaker, please turn that down because we do have a bit of delay and that can kind of screw things up.
Yes.
But other than that, we want to hear from you.
And for those who are tuning in live via YouTube to watch tonight's show, we invite you to chat with fellow fans. You can post your comments, ask questions, and Michael and I will react to those as the show goes on. Now, if you want your comment to appear live during the show on the screen, feel free to post a super chat. All you have to do is click on the $ symbol, a slider will appear on your screen, decide on a dollar amount that you're willing to donate, and we will feature your comment or question on the screen. And a huge thank you to our sponsor and patron, Douglas Meacham. We appreciate your support and ongoing support, Doug. Well, Mike, it's been a pretty slow news week in the world of Superman. There hasn't been a lot of new information. We're always creating our own original content with videos and podcasts and things like that. And if we have time, which we probably will, at the end, I'm going to talk about Scotty V's latest input. He's kind of returned to the site in recent times doing his Great Scott segments, and he's created a little bit of controversy, which he likes to do. And we will discuss that towards the end of the show. But as I said, there hasn't been really any new major details, especially on the movie side of things, like where we usually start with. Nothing new on the movie front. But on the television side of things, we do know now that according to the Directors Guild of Canada's production list on their website, Superman and Lois will begin filming in Vancouver in September this year, all going well.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that. One, it's probably much better weather-wise. I mean, I know Vancouver's kind of in the northern part of the hemisphere, but, summer is still hot. So if you're starting in September, you're starting, during the fall when it's cooling down. And two, if the script that we read is accurate, setting it around the fall is actually the best thing they can do. They'll probably get some really good local color from it. To get that film. So I'm kind of excited that we're inching closer to this thing because I think right now we all need just something to kind of take our minds off of the pandemic. So I'm really excited. I can't wait for the set photos to start coming out and people to start complaining about those set photos because they didn't live up to whatever expectations they had in their head. And all that, yeah. So I guess I'm just excited.
Yeah, well, they're planning to start filming in Vancouver between September 28th and April 1st next year. So that's a long. I guess they're allocating some time for, one, they got to do 20, 22 episodes or whatever they do in a season. And, they've got to be allowing for weather, and they've got to be allowing for pandemic issues.
Yes.
I believe Canada is doing pretty well on the COVID front, so
Yes.
productions can open up filming, and obviously they'll have requirements in place, restrictions in place around their COVID-19 safety plans and stuff like that, which pretty much every business in the world is having to put in place to be able to continue working. So it's all well and good. People are saying, "Oh, I doubt it. I don't see that happening." Which year is this they're talking about? It's this year. Yeah, it is happening, and there are obviously some places in the world where the pandemic is worse than others. New Zealand, I just read last night here. New Zealand is COVID free. They've lifted all restrictions. They've just gone back to normal now because they've managed it so well. Obviously, they've got no international flights coming in, so that's probably why. But I think that's fantastic news.
Yeah, Tina in the chat asks, why would you want to read the script ahead of time, with spoilers and such? And I never seek these things out. I have a weird relationship with spoilers. I'm not adverse to them. I mean, I would like to avoid them, but I'm not like if I hear something, I'm going to start clutching my pearls and start, getting a case of the vapors or whatever kind of bizarre thing I want to compare it to. But when you have a friend, and that friend, who is actually not Steve, it was somebody else, says, "Hey man, I got a copy of the script. Do you want it?" Yeah, I do. I want to read it, and I want to read it at work. And then realize I really want to dig into this further and stop reading it at work and read it that night. So, and when you kind of do what Steve and I do, which is commentary, being on the same level as everybody else because everybody else read it just keeps us at pace with what the other guys are doing, just not as well as we do it.
Yeah, and it is that challenge of that spoiler thing, and there are times when you wish that you were just a fan and just heard about things and didn't even see trailers sometimes because they can be spoilery. You just go into watching a movie like you did when you were a kid and had no idea of any kind of pre-production stuff happening. But when you get into our position, you run a website, you need to be ahead of the curve, you need to be on top of things, and you're a person who is producing your own content as well. It's sometimes beneficial to your own growth to be able to get the inside knowledge on things beforehand and see what a script looks like and imagine it in your mind, and then have that translated into an actual pilot episode to go, oh, I didn't see that coming, or oh, there's a difference in what they'd written here to what they actually produced there. So it's almost in some ways like reading the novel and then seeing the movie based on the novel.
Yeah, it's like back in the summer of 1989 when I was traveling to visit my grandparents. The day we left was the day Batman came out. So obviously I wasn't going to the theater that night. I didn't go for a couple weeks, but I really wanted to see this movie. So I picked up the novelization, and I read that in the car ride. And the novelization has some things that didn't end up in the movie. So I remember sitting in the theater going, why isn't Bruce jumping on a horse at this point and riding through Gotham City? This doesn't make any sense. Oh, wait, it's different. And I think it makes the commentary more interesting if you can point out, oh, this was in the script and that isn't. Everything that is done online is in the service of content. It's all content. That's all anyone, us sitting here talking is content. We're not trying to change the world. We're not trying to change your mind. We're not talking about anything that is important to the day-to-day operations of humankind. So you got to make that interesting to keep people coming around. And I'm not one of these people that wants to sit here and spoil everything for you. But having a leg up on it does kind of keep things in my head that I can say certain things that might hint at something, and maybe that makes people more interested in it. But there are people out there that are really sensitive about spoilers, and I just don't understand it. With everything else in the world that's terrible, why would you get all worked up about that? But it's not my place to say that they shouldn't get all worked up about it. I can just ask the question.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand if you're trying to stay away from spoilers. I don't understand getting all worked up and getting all narky about it, and if someone accidentally says something to you and what have you. But I totally get not wanting to be spoiled, and if you're in a position where you're just a fan and you just want to watch it and not read the script beforehand, I get that totally. But as I said, in our position, doing what we do, we want that material. We want to get the heads up. We want the inside track. We want to know what's going on, and we're not going to spoil anything here. In general, we like to, no matter what it is we're talking about. If a movie's just come out, if a comic book's just come out, we tend to try to keep it spoiler free here. We talk in roundabout terms, where people who know have read whatever we're talking about or seen what we're talking about will get what we're saying, where other people will go, okay, I want to watch this because these guys sound excited about it. So yeah, I get both sides of the coin, but doing what I do, running the Superman homepage, give me whatever you got.
Yeah, maybe we can drop fake spoilers, like talking about the fact that in the pilot they kill Lois and Superman ends up marrying Lana at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and that Lex is a spider alien coming from outer space.
Yeah, exactly.
But the Lex Luthor thing in Superman and Lois is an interesting one, as in regards to who they might cast, or whether it will be a different version to what's going to be seen in what has been seen in Supergirl. But we'll leave that alone. John has asked twice now, what's happening with The Flash? When are they going to start filming for season 7? I don't know that for certain. I don't have any inside knowledge on that one. That probably would be around the similar time as Superman and Lois, just because Superman and Lois will be airing on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. following The Flash. So I imagine that their filming and production, pre-production, all that kind of stuff is probably paralleling Superman and Lois at the moment.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, I didn't hear anything dropped in the... I listened to a bit of the Tom Cavanaugh interview that Michael Rosenbaum did. And he talked to Danielle Pennebecker a little bit, too, and they didn't mention anything. I'm sure they'll announce that. I bet everything's going to come out at Fandom, in all honesty. That's when, like, the hard dates are probably going to get announced. Which is why, as somebody pointed out in the comments, things are going to be kind of dry until that happens.
I was about to say something about Superman and Lois that now it's just kind of escaped my mind. Something somebody mentioned in the comments. It'll come to me. But so Superman and Lois will air January 2021. It will be on Tuesday nights after The Flash. And looking forward to seeing just whether or not the pilot episode does match what they put into the script. And I'm sure that was just a draft script. It's not the filming version of the script. There were always changes. It was months ago. Why do they leak? Sometimes it's purposeful. Other times somebody's let the cat out of the bag, and these things take a life of their own. And you cannot get those worms back in that can once you've let them out. But it's out there. So if you're looking for it, I'm sure you can find it.
Yeah, like back when Supergirl, when they had filmed the pilot got leaked online, like the entire pilot. And I had to make the decision, am I going to watch this or am I going to wait? And I went, I'll watch it, because I'm going to watch it anyways. It's not like when I watch the pilot, it's like, no, I'm putting the show, and Steve can handle this on his own, and I'm done with everything. It's not how this works.
Interestingly, I saw the unreleased version of the Smallville pilot back before they cast Annette O'Toole as Martha Kent. They had a different actress who we actually interviewed for the Superman homepage about that whole process. And yeah, that was really interesting to see that version of the pilot that was never released with the different actress playing Martha Kent, and how similar everything was, even though they had to reshoot some pretty impactful scenes, like the rocket landing and all that kind of stuff, and the crashing of the the car, the truck. It was fascinating to see.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I remember it being very popular around that time on the bootleg tables, back when bootleg videos and DVDs were a thing. There's something that the internet has made completely and utterly redundant. Internet and high speed internet, I guess I should say, because you can just upload that stuff instead of selling it at a comic convention. But I remember the unaired pilot. Did they put that on the big box set that they released when the series ended?
No, I don't think they did. No, they would have to pay the actress probably to do that.
Yeah, more than likely.
But I remember it was like a screener VHS that was sent out, and I got a copy of that. KOWA in the comments is asking, Superman and Lois and Supergirl on the same Earth, but not the same Earth as the Flash. No, I think they're all on the same Earth. There's just the one Earth now.
Yeah, they're all in the Justice League together.
Yeah. So they're all in the Justice League together, all on the same Earth. So they are all now established as being on Earth Prime, I believe, which is Anthony commenting also on that in the comments. All right, well, that's all we have on the TV side of things. Superman and Lois filming, setting to start in September, and hopefully that continues with no alterations on that schedule. But on the comic book side of things, it was last week, but both Jimmy Olsen number 12 and Lois Lane number 12 were released this last week, both being the final issues of their 12-issue maxi series runs. We didn't review Jimmy Olsen's title on the Superman homepage. It is a quirky one. It is a wacky story. A lot of fun, don't get me wrong. I actually really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the Jimmy Olsen more than I enjoyed the Lois Lane series. Even though Lois Lane was written by Greg Rucka, who's been one of my favourite comic book writers and someone who's generally gotten Lois Lane down pretty well. But I felt like Rucka was almost hamstrung in a way due to what Bendis was doing over on the Superman and Action Comics side of things with the release of the secret identity and everything like that, and how that kind of maybe didn't converge well with what Rucka was trying to do or had planned to do on Lois, and maybe some of his original plans were kind of curtailed because of that. But it wasn't a bad story. It just didn't grab my attention as much as I'd hoped it had or would have.
Yeah, I'm planning on when it gets collected and then there's a sale. I know that sounds bad, but I just don't like paying a lot for comics now, in all honesty.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it because it is Greg Rucka. It just sounds like, from the outside looking in perspective, which, take it with a grain of salt, or a giant, chunk of salt, whatever you want to take it with. It just seems like this whole thing of revealing his identity, I don't know, it didn't seem to land like they wanted it to. I mean,
I get that.
They were wanting like the big splash, but I think they wanted like people to still be interested after that. So, and a pandemic had something to do with it. I won't deny that at all. That was some unfortunate timing. But I think that it just looks like it didn't go the way they wanted it to go. And I don't think audience reaction was what they wanted it to be either. How are the sales doing on the Superman books right now?
Well, it's really hard to say because all those sales charts that we usually get from month to month showing the comic book sales have kind of gone into hiatus at the moment with the pandemic. So all the stats that we got from month to month and that we would put together the top 10 of Superman comic book sales each month, if you're not aware, that's part of what we do in the comics section of supermanhomepage.com, have not been updated since, March or April. So I don't know how that's going to be calculated or how you kind of bring that all together, considering that stores haven't been opened. I don't know how they use that with the digital side of things. If that's taken into consideration, it's a tricky one.
I would think you would want to include digital sales because they're the same price as what you pay in the shop. So it's not like the digital sales have more impact because the digital version is cheaper. It's just as expensive as the regular book.
Yeah, I imagine they do, but because regular books haven't been available, and I don't know now also whether or not that's with the whole Diamond Publishing thing, the distribution of comic books now that's split between different companies, whether that has any kind of factor into being able to calculate sales. Because you just go to Diamond and they would be able to tell you that they distributed X amount of books to the stores and only had so many returns, and so the sales would be indicated pretty easily there. I don't know how that happens moving forward. I will have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, it probably is going to be more direct.
Yeah,
because you're not. If it's just one distributor working for DC Comics, their focus is only on that company, so you don't have to split between Marvel and Image and Dark Horse and all the other companies that are out there.
True. So they were selling well. Superman and Action Comics. If I just have a look quickly back to my own documentation here, if I can find the sales information, we'll just hide this so that I can get to my side of things. So on the comic book side of things, we've got top 10 sales for, let's see, March is what I had last. You had Superman number 21 was 40th in the sales charts. Action Comics 1021 came in at number 46. And really the number one comic book on the Superman side of things was Justice League number 42, which came in at number 34. So they're still within the top 50 comic book sales. So I guess that's not too bad.
Yeah, that sounds about right too. I mean, Bendis's run is still getting some heat from it, so that's why I was like not assuming that sales were dropping fast, even though even in the comments we're kind of hearing those. But I don't know. It's weird being on the outside looking in, but on the other hand, I'd collected long enough to notice trends and to see, when things like this happen with Superman on the whole, especially post-death, it seems like it's the big, huge events and the big revelations and such that get the big sales spikes, but then the sales just kind of fall off because the people that were around just for that event kind of leave. It wasn't like with the death, which everyone came in and it attracted readers. And I'm sure, in different things they attempted in the New 52, it's kind of funny looking at the because about a year or so ago, I got kind of curious to what the sales were around the time of the New 52 when that started. And it was a pretty sharp decline from 2009 to 2010. It's like the best-selling one was Superman 700, and that had like 15 covers. So that kind of stacks the deck on that. So it's just a sad fact of the matter that Superman comics go through long periods of time where they don't sell very well.
That's true, and they always seem to want to revitalize them by some kind of new crisis or new massive event. Getting rid of the Trunks, getting rid of new powers, getting rid of his secret identity. It always seems to be some kind of big splash that peaks and then troughs again.
Looking at it from the 1,000-foot view, it's insane.
JP, it's interesting because before I get into one of the comments, this latest Superman comic book from Bendis goes through all the craziness from that kind of outside perspective that Superman has been through in such recent times, and how everything is he's just been going through so much has been thrown at him in a short period of time, and how the Justice League seem to be kind of concerned about how he's dealing with that on the mental side of things. So it's quite an interesting look back at all the things that have happened. JP Rocker is asking about just what do comic books cost at the moment? Are they cheaper than 2 candy bars? I think you find candy bars are probably cheaper. You can probably get a whole bag cheaper than comic books.
It depends on the candy bar.
Yeah,
I mean, at my job, we have such a crazy markup on candy that 2 of the giant candy bars is like $5. So
your average comic book, what's Action Comics and Superman in US?
$3.99.
Yeah. Okay.
$3.99. Yeah, about $4.
Yeah.
Seems to be the average price. Which is why, even though I'm just letting them digitally pile up, it's why I'm enjoying the Man of Tomorrow, because it's $1.
Yeah.
It's such a low investment. Even if I don't end up enjoying that issue, it's just like, I only spent $1 on this.
Yeah. Budre's asking, he's saying he'd like to know how well the Superman Smashes the Klan trade does sale-wise. I know the individuals sold really well, and there's been a lot of hype around people absolutely loving Superman Smashes the Klan, so I'm sure the trade will do really well.
Yeah, and they're hitting a larger audience with that because of the socio-political aspect of the story, the historical aspect of the story. There's a lot you can hook into this thing, and I think that going with what we were just talking about, I think the general audience loves big Superman stories. And this is where my former theory that the TV shows are better than the movies, because the TV shows have more time to tell a story. I think what I'm ignoring there is the fact that there are people that don't want to invest a whole lot of time into reading Superman or Batman or any other character. They just want to be entertained for a couple of hours, and they're good, and they're fans of that. And things like Superman Smashes the Klan is something you can really sink your teeth into on a broader audience level, because it ties into the radio show, and it ties into the history of Superman battling the Klan and the Klan of the Fiery Cross. And it's still relevant
to today's situation.
Yes, it's extremely relevant to today's situation. A family getting an Asian family being discriminated against in the United States right now is probably just as relevant as it is now as it was back in 1947, 48, 46. I'm really bad on years with the radio show sometimes, because of the coronavirus. There has been an uptick in violence and prejudice against Asian people because everyone, quote unquote, blames them for the virus. It happened before anyone's like, Mike, you're just parroting talking points. I've got anecdotal evidence for you all. It happens at work all the time.
Yep, indeed. John asks, are we going to get into the Great Scott stuff? Yes, we will talk about the Great Scott stuff later in the show. But right now, we're going to take a quick break. It's halfway point of the show. We're going to play some messages. That flew by. And we will be back with a list of what is available on the comic book side of things right after these messages. Don't go anywhere. It'll help if I press the right button.
Probably.
We'll be back in a moment with the exciting climax of today's episode. So stand by.
Look, up in the sky.
It's a bird.
It's a plane. No, it's SupermanHomepage.com, the #1 Superman fan site in the world. SupermanHomepage.com, covering the world of Superman from the 1930s to today. News, reviews, rumors, and reports. SupermanHomepage.com for all your Superman comics, TV shows, movies, cartoons, radio shows, and more. Everything you ever wanted to know about the Man of Steel and more. SupermanHomepage.com.
Thanks, Superman Homepage, for all the support over the years. I really appreciate it.
I'm Matt Bomer. I'm the voice of Superman in Superman Unbound, and this is the Superman Homepage.
Right here on Superman Homepage.
As the airline that flies to more countries than any other, Turkish Airlines is pleased to announce a new destination, Metropolis, a city reborn, rebuilt, and stronger than ever, proud of its heritage and its heroes.
Well, thanks to LexCorp's substantial contribution, Metropolis is now open for business again.
Come visit the city of tomorrow, today.
We can't wait to welcome you.
Book your flight now on Turkish Airlines.
So there you have it. Bit of a Turkish Airlines commercial from back when Batman v Superman was on our screens. Well created, well shot, well edited. I thought they were really well done. There was the Wonder Woman one as well. That was pretty well done.
Yeah, I like, even though I'm not a fan of Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor at all, it really felt like a real commercial that somebody like Lex Luthor would shoot. So that, well done on that.
Yes, indeed. So, as I said before the break, Superman comic books available this week, and let's get into those right now. This is what you can look forward to if you are a Superman comic book reader. We have Dark Knight Death Metal #2, which is available in a variety of different variant covers there. We've got Aquaman, we've got Harley, we've got Lobo, we've got Wonder Woman playing what looks like an electric guitar thingy. We've got a black and white version. Also out this week is Justice League #49, and that is available in a variant cover as well. Then we've got, as I mentioned, Jimmy Olsen #12, the final issue of this maxi series, and that is also available in a variant cover. It's funny, he's drinking out of a mug that says "World's Best Boss."
That's so creepy looking, though. What is with his face?
We also have the trade paperback of DC Superhero Girls Weird Science. And then, as you mentioned, on the digital side of things, we have Superman Man of Tomorrow #11, which is already available to download. As are all these books, they are now available to purchase and download. And our reviewer, James Lance, has already submitted his review of Justice League #49, which I saw a bit of conjecture on over the internet and social media. Simon Spurrier, I think is the author's name, the writer's name. A lot of people saying that he gets Wonder Woman really well he really gets her in this comic book story, but at the cost of every other Justice League member. A lot of them are written out of character to portray Wonder Woman in a particular light, especially Superman. He loses his cool and does something rash in this comic book that is probably not something Superman would normally do, and it's kind of done in a way that it's to portray Wonder Woman in a better light, because then she kind of is the voice of reason. And so James gave this story, or this particular issue, a 2 out of 5 rating, perhaps because of the fact that most of the characters he feels are written out of character.
Yeah, it's always tricky when you're trying to make one character look good that you have to make other characters not look as good. But on the other hand, if that's the story he's telling, I'm so blasé about continuity and stuff like that anymore, because I'm not in the game, and the idea of a prolonged continuity, I just don't know. We're never going to get it again, so it's hard to get worked up. Like, this story is the author's story. It's the story that they want to tell. So while it's a fair criticism, it's not something that would bug me, because I'm just like, oh, this is just the story they're telling. It's bad or it's good or whatever. but it doesn't really mean that I'm going to get all "Rrr" like I used to.
In the comments, Anthony is asking who would we like to see take over as the main writer of the Superman comic books once Brian Michael Bendis does leave. And to be clear, while Bendis's run on Superman and Action Comics is coming to an end, it's still quite a few months away. It's within sight, but it's not necessarily imminent. But I don't have a particular writer. Well, obviously I love Dan Jurgens, both his art and his writing, and what he did. Rebirth on the Rebirth side of things was fascinating. I'm up for any kind of new writer to come on board. I wouldn't mind seeing Tom Taylor take a positive.
That's a good one.
Superman. Tom just does so well with whatever he's thrown, and he seems to get the characters, the heart of the characters. Even when he's doing a zombie apocalypse or whatever he might be doing at the time, he still seems to get at the heart of the characters really well. So I'd like to see him writing a positive Superman, not a Superman that's always either death or destruction kind of things, which are the stories that he's been given at DC. But people also in commenting that they'd like to see Elliot S. Magan come on board as an editor on the Superman line. I'm not sure what Elliot's up to these days or how involved he is in comic books, but he had his own spin on Superman that really took him away from what a lot of people thought was the traditional side of things. If I'm remembering, some of his 1970s stories correctly, didn't he make him the TV anchor at one point?
No, Denny O'Neil was the one that wrote that story. So no, Elliot has a very. It's interesting. He gave an interview to Wizard magazine back around the time of the death of Superman, where he talked about his view of Superman, and his stories always seemed to try to, when they weren't just your standard like kind of adventure story. He wrote "Must There Be a Superman," which was commenting on the idea that Superman's a social drag on society. And so he gets the Guardians of the Universe. At this point, if you would have asked me that question and said Elliot S. Magan like 10 years ago, I probably would have put up a pretty firm argument. Nothing against Elliot S. Magan, but I had a very particular view of Superman at that time. The problem with bringing in writers from the past is that Dan Jurgens is the exception that proves the rule. Usually when you're trying to bring these people back, what you're hoping to do is recapture what they did that you liked in the first place. But in some cases, like with Elliot S. Magan, it's probably been a good at least 20 to 30 years since he's written a Superman story. So you're not going to get the Elliot S. Magan of the 70s, especially in an editing capacity now. What Jurgens did that was intelligent was he wrote the character with within his idea of who the character is, but he made the stories work for a modern audience. He didn't just rewrite things that he did back in the 90s. It's why writers like Tom Taylor or Robert Venditti or somebody mentioned James Tynion IV. If he's got a good ear for Superman, let it go. Somebody suggested, John Patrick Van Pelt suggested J. Michael Straczynski. I think really he between Leaving Grounded, but also I loved those 3 Earth One graphic novels. I think he might have said everything he wants to say about the character. So it's a tricky needle to thread, but I don't think it's I think there are plenty of people out there right now that are more than capable of writing a good Superman story. It's just how long are they going to do it, and how invested is the audience going to get?
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned the writer of Superman, the Man of Tomorrow, the digital series. He's been doing a fantastic job on those books. Tom King is another guy who I think doesn't gets Superman pretty well as well in those Up in the Sky stories. So look, I'd be interested in any type of change. It'll be interesting to see what direction DC do take. But my vote would be Tom Taylor, not just because he's an Aussie.
Does it have a little bit to do with it?
Just a little bit. Yeah. All right. Venkman saying, didn't JMS, as in J. Michael Straczynski, say he was done writing comics? I don't know if he's completely done, but maybe he's just done with superhero side of things.
Yeah, he within the past 6 months or so, he released an autobiography that I still have to read. He's also very nice on Twitter. He spends a lot of his time answering people's questions, so I actually kind of appreciate that.
Very cool. All right, DC gave us some, talking of Tom Taylor, some preview pages at some of his Deceased stuff. Deceased Dead Planet #2 is out on August 4th, but the first issue debuted this past week, and it was pretty good. Like I said, Tom's doing really well with whatever he's given. So we have some pages from that particular comic book that you might like to check out. I believe that's the cover issue without the titling. And then you've got another variant there that has a variant on the Superman comic on the variant cover with a pretty horror type angle to it. And then we've got a couple of preview pages from within that comic book, which is quite interesting because we see we've got John, obviously Superboy, who's now being called Superman, coming back to Earth with Batman, or the new version of Batman, and the new version of Wonder Woman, obviously because everything else, the previous versions of those characters were either killed or something happened to them because of the whole Deceased ongoing dramas. But Deceased Dead Planet #2, quite an interesting first issue. Second issue previews there, comes out August 4th. Definitely worth checking out.
Does look interesting, I'll give it that.
Now they've also been doing a digital only side story called Deceased Hope at World's End, and maybe this is what I'm thinking about more than the one that I just spoke about, and that's because there's so many Deceased titles at the moment, and we have some preview pages of that, and here they are. These characters that I spoke about coming back to check out things, and Tom Taylor is saying it is called Hope at World's End, so it's not all doom and gloom, but we've also got some preview pages of from that comic book there as well, and there you have John and Cassie having a chat in the Fortress of Solitude, and there's Damian taking on the Batman role there, and this is a digital only release. I don't know if it will be collected in trade or in a physical version down the end, but that is available to download now. And the sixth chapter, that's chapter 5, the sixth chapter will be released on July 28th.
That looks adorable, actually.
Well, it's...
I mean, I know it's dark and depressing and it's at World's End, but the artwork's kind of jaunty.
So the DC stuff really taking off at DC Comics. Now, on the convention side of things, everyone was pretty disappointed when some of the major conventions were cancelled or put off till next year, including Comic-Con International at San Diego. Now, they're doing Comic-Con at Home. It is an online virtual event that will take place between July 22nd and July 26th, and it will, in conjunction with IGN, they'll produce live streams around 34 of the biggest Comic-Con at Home panels, and there'll be other events that take place over the 5 days that I just mentioned, and panels will be carried across IGN's various outlets such as IGN.com, Comic-Con's YouTube, Instagram and Twitter sites, and the Comic-Con at Home website itself. Now, for DC fans, it probably isn't really anything that you are going to be excited about, because I don't think DC Comics will have much of a presence, if at all, at Comic-Con at home, because they have their own online event taking place called DC Fandom, as we've spoken about, an online virtual experience that will take place on August 22nd.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And again, I'm wondering if this is a test run to see if this is what they're going to do going forward. So not to invest a whole lot of money going to Comic-Con, like having a presence at Comic-Con, but not making it like your end-all be-all, and having more of a exclusive internet-driven thing where they don't have to spend as much money.
Yeah, I think one, cost factor would be a massive part of doing an online virtual experience, and then secondly, you can reach a wider array of audiences that are not just located at San Diego, or not just in the US, but everywhere. And especially if you're doing a 24-hour event, whoever you are, whatever time zone you find yourself in, you should be able to find something during your waking hours that will be there for you. And if it's not, then you might be able to go watch back something that was screened or streamed earlier. So I think for a number of factors, the online way of doing an event like this may be the way moving forward. There'll always be a place for a physical event, especially with the cosplay side of things. I know DC Fandom are really driving the whole cosplay element and getting fans to share, especially their videos and their altered photographs and stuff that they do with Photoshop to make themselves really look dynamic, not just the costumes they wear. But yeah, I think people wanting to have their photo with people in cosplay is a massive draw card to these actual conventions that take place physically.
Yeah, I mean here in Atlanta, they canceled Dragon Con this year. It's going virtual as well, but there is a parade on the Saturday of the convention where cosplayers march through the streets of Atlanta. And that's a huge, and people love to see it. I never really got into the parade, but I'm not a big parade guy. I don't like crowds, which is ironic going to Dragon Con because it's nothing but a giant crowd. But I'm not just going to stand there for a couple of hours and watch people parade by. As much as that's exciting, and it's exciting for the people in the parade as well, it's just not my thing. So I guess I'm just an old fuddy-duddy.
No, I can understand that. It doesn't necessarily tickle my fancy either, but I can understand, for the people who are involved dressing up, that would be the thing that they look forward to the most is being recognised and being, in that parade and, being part of that whole environment.
Yeah, I've got several good friends. Two of them cosplay as Superman, but they also are part of the Spartans from 300. Boy, is that an extreme group. Whew. But, they get together and armor up. And cutting season. I learned that was a term. But, yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And then just the fact that they get to march with that crew is a huge deal for them. And I would... It's the thing about fandom that I think constantly is getting lost, is the fact that we're all in this to kind of enjoy ourselves, and there is a zero-sum game, in my opinion, to trying to drag down something else that somebody likes in favor of what you like.
Yeah.
When it's a huge table, it's an all-you-can-eat buffet. You don't have to focus on the salad bar and say, why is this here because you don't like it, when there's plenty of people going up to the salad bar.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. And it's something we'll get into in more detail in my upcoming column that I'm writing for the Big Blue Report, the Superman homepage free newsletter that's sent out twice a month. The next edition of that is being sent out tonight. So if you're not subscribed, head to our website and subscribe to the Big Blue Report, where my column will be about the controversy and opinions and all that kind of stuff about things to do with Superman fandom. And that happened this week with Scotty V. He is doing his Great Scott segments where he goes on a rant about things that are annoying him or things that he, has an opinion about. And he got on the whole Dean Cain thing that you and I discussed last week, and we copped a few comments on our YouTube channel about things that we said. But Scotty goes to town on Dean Cain, and he's not finished yet either. There's 2 more videos coming out about that comic book thing that the Magnificent Seven or whatever they are that Dean's been a part of, with him kind of being portrayed as a type of Superman in that. Not going to kind of promote it here, but Scotty goes to town on that, and funnily enough, because I like to tag people in our Twitter reports about all the things that we post on the Superman homepage, I tagged Dean Cain in Scotty's announcement of his videos, and Dean responded. Like, he went to town on Scotty, asking this, that, and the other, and then there was like back and forth between Scotty and Dean, and Scotty doesn't pull his punches, never has.
No.
And neither does Dean.
Very opinionated.
Yes. So it was quite interesting to see that back and forth going on, and I don't think Scotty ever in his wildest dreams thought that... Scotty is one of those people who thinks that maybe there's 2 people out there watching his videos, and for one of those people to be Dean Cain was probably a big shock to Scotty. Very interesting to see the dynamic there between... And no, I'm not joking, John. It was definitely... an interesting back and forth between Scotty and Dean Cain on Twitter.
And I'm glad he went back at it, because what happens some of the time is that people spout off an opinion and they get some pushback maybe about the person they're talking about, and they kind of get back, they get a turtle and they're back in their shell. But Scotty has never, in my experience knowing him, been shy about hiding his opinion about something. He has very high standards for things. It's one of the things that I respect about him, because I don't have that similar outlook, but I appreciate the kind of purity of his ability to just keep going with it. Like, when he would talk about Smallville, he was seeing things that I wasn't seeing. And it's the same, and I'm not talking smack about either of these people. It's the same with Neil Bailey. I don't think Neil and I saw Smallville in the same way, but that doesn't mean that I don't think Neil's opinion wasn't as valid. He was just focusing on something that I wasn't focusing on. And if you want to be in a position where if new information is presented to you, you can change your mind. On the other hand, if you're expressing an opinion and you still have that opinion and you argue for that opinion, there's something to be said for that as well. Now I have something to do after the show, and go and chase these tweets down. And apparently I didn't realize that we had gotten some comments on our thing, so bring it on. I don't care. I am just so mad all the time now that somebody complaining about something I say on this video is almost laughable. It's like, this is what you're choosing to complain about. Okay, whatever. Have at it, Hoss.
No, I just found it interesting that people, we went to town on, we didn't go to town on him, but we had our say about Dean Cain's comments on social media, and then people were saying, well, how can you go to town on him for having an opinion? Well, how can you go to town on us for having an opinion? Like,
yeah, it's just you commentators, how can you commentate on what you're commentating on? It's just like, this is kind of what we do. And the idea there is, and it's a false narrative too. The idea there is that we're not being fair because we're not presenting all sides. And there's this like perception out there that if you're going to talk about something, you need to talk about all sides of it, present different opinions, and have a more balanced review. It's not how life works, and that's the other, and the other side has plenty of places, one at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, where they get to do that. So we get to do what we do here, and we hardly ever get into that. But Dean Cain is kind of a big deal when it comes to Superman because he was Superman. Mm-hmm. So it's not like it's not like some actor who has nothing to do. It's like we were talking about something like if Grant Gustin went crazy and started spouting off stuff about how he doesn't think that his Flash could do this. We wouldn't talk about that because it's the Flash. We don't talk about the Flash here except when John asks about it. So I just think it's great that Scotty just dug in and gave as good as he got apparently. So and what a thin skin. I mean, on the other hand, Dean Cain fighting back isn't surprising, but man, it seems like some of these guys have such a thin skin. Like they can sit there and snipe from their position, but if you dare, retort it back, they start flinging feces at you. I don't get that.
Well, let's look back at a more simpler time. Let's do a
let's do that.
Here is your promo.
Come with me now, my son, as we break through the bonds of your earthly confinement, traveling through time and space.
Alrighty, we don't have a whole lot to do. Back in 1950, we had Action Comics number 148, which has Superman. Something that we would not think is socially acceptable today, especially considering what happened with the Washington Redskins this week. You also have Adventure Comics where Superboy is apparently flying kids on a carpet, which is scary looking to me. I don't know. That story is The Flying Peril, so I don't know what that says. Jumping all the way to 1970, I love this. It's a Jimmy Olsen issue. Jimmy Olsen number 132, and Jimmy Olsen's got all this cash, and he's having some guys take Superman out to beat him up. This is the great thing about Jimmy Olsen from this era is this is what he did. Jumping all the way to 1990, we were in the middle of we were getting into Kurt Swan month over at or near that over at the in the Superman. He took over the no. This is Jim Mooney's last issue. I'm sorry. This is the issue before that, but it's a Bizarro issue of the Superboy, the comic book, which was based on the television series.
What number was that?
Number 8.
Okay, there it is.
It's a really cool You also had that same week World's Finest number 2, which was a prestige format series, which has Joker and Lex Luthor. No, this is the 1991.
Oh, sorry. World's Finest number 2. There it is. There we go.
There you go. Yeah, it's a really neat cover, I thought. Then jumping ahead to 2000, this is the day the Superman the Dailies Volume 1 that went from 1939 to 1940 came out. Nice. Those are a lot of fun. I can't recommend those enough. Same day, you had Superman Adventures number 47, where Lois is literally holding Superman in the palm of her hand.
Superman Adventures 47. There it is.
Which is another dynamic. You also had Adventures of Superman number 582, which was the second part of the Emperor Joker storyline. They had these playing card aspects to the covers that were really cool.
Yeah, I didn't go that one.
It's an Ed McGuinness cover on Adventures of Superman, which is kind of weird. And then finally, we are 10 years away today from when Grounded started in Superman number 701. So that's kind of exciting. And going to the real world, which I thought I had pulled up, you have traditionally, July 11th, Michael Rosenbaum was born. And July 17th is traditionally recognized as the birth date of Lana Lang. And that's this week in history.
There you have it. And there's a couple of the ladies who have played Lana Lang as well as some of the artwork. So that was this week in history, and that pretty much brings us to the end of the show. And Venkman does want you to sign off as Bibbo again.
I will sign off as Bibbo tonight. That's okay.
Yeah, before we do finish up, I want to thank everyone for watching tonight's episode of WGBS TV Live. Thank you to our sponsor and patron, Douglas Meacham. And thank you to you, my co-host, Mr. Michael Bailey. Thanks, Mike.
Pleasure as always, Steve. Always good to talk about my favorite.
And the complete 1 hour video of tonight's show will remain available on the Superman homepage website and our YouTube channel if you'd like to watch it back, or perhaps you missed part of the show. But we'll be back next week on Tuesday, July 21st, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time for another edition of WGBS TV Live. We look forward to talking to you then. Until then, be sure to check out supermanhomepage.com for all your daily news updates on everything surrounding the Man of Steel. I'm Steve Eunice on behalf of myself and Michael Bailey. Thanks for watching WGBS TV Live, brought to you by supermanhomepage.com.
Shoulder.